All right, there we go. So, all right, so uh, here's what we have to talk about today. Um, Trump voices or couches. So, just a quick show of hands. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to talk about couches? Do you want to talk about Trump? Or do you want to talk about voices? So, the first two of any of those three that happens, we'll start there in the chat. Yeah, Deb, I completely agree. So, I figure we'll talk about JD Vance because that's couches and it's fucking funny. But I didn't want to make that assumption first because the voices topic is a trans topic. Um, so maybe I'll save that for at the end. And be aware, I'm going to pick on people, and I'm going to ask people to come into the live because I do that. If you get a live invite from me, just do it. Don't worry about anything. I'll make you look good because I look like shit. I look like total shit. Okay, so J.D. Vance, the clown prince of ass buffoonery. Nobody's going to disagree. Nobody's going to disagree with it. Well, Sunshine, just come back. Just come back. We'll be here. I'm at least going an hour tonight. So there's something profoundly unsettling about watching a man who once positioned himself as an insightful chronicler of the working class. And the working class struggles to transform whatever the hell J.D. Vance has turned himself into. So I sort of picked through the Hillbilly Elegy book, and the way that he's changed over time is just it's I don't even know um, how to how to talk through that. And I just dropped the article in the chat, so if you haven't read it, you can follow along while we have this commentary. Um, and yes, as a trans woman, I did post JD Vance in drag because there are areas of the Hillbilly Elegy where Vance pretty much sort of assumes that he's gay or that he thought that he was gay at one time. And, you know, I guess he now doesn't believe that. But anyway, so there was a time in which Vance called Trump cultural heroin and compared him to Hitler. Vance did this. Um, there's actual recordings of this happening. Of course, in the world of deep fakes, MAGA people would just say that was deep fakes. That wasn't real. He didn't say that. Fuck you or whatever, and would be like, well, okay, but fine. Um, his so-called conversion experience from Trump critic to Trump acolyte wasn't some road to Damascus spiritual awakening. It was a career move that was completely Machiavellian. And hey, Ann, how are you doing? I'm gonna cuss a lot tonight, Ann, so don't worry, it's gonna be good. And let's be fair, a lot of the Machiavellian things that J.D. Vance does are very McDonald triad and dark triad like. So, I mean, in my estimation, J.D. Vance could be a complete sociopath. He probably is. Um, so, um, the first thing that I want to talk about Vance about is his whole obsession with childless cat ladies. And I don't understand why he ever said that or why he thought that was a thing, but what kind of deranged mind fixates on childless cat ladies as America's existential threat? Childless cat ladies are ruling the country. Um, Vance's bizarre crusade against women without children would be laughable if it weren't so deeply alarming. His suggestion that people without children shouldn't have as much voting power as parents isn't just unconstitutional, it's a steaming pile of authoritarian shit. Yeah, Beverly is completely spineless. So, childless cat ladies are apparently running the country. Now, I don't know. Um, Maybe he's not looking at the people that I'm looking at. Um, but when I look at Congress as a whole, I see a bunch of old men, old white men, predominantly, over half. Please, somebody tell me I'm fucked up and I'm crazy and that's wrong, but a large body of Congress is still old white men. I mean, I love Liz Stein and the other strong females in the congressional space, but they're not over half of that space. I'm pretty sure. Okay, Ansel, I'm not fucking nuts. That's great. Um, so on top of that, Vance advocates for a special tax break specifically for parents, effectively arguing that childless Americans should pay more taxes and people with more than 2 kids should pay less taxes and get more voting power. Uh, you know, where does that even come from? His narrow vision of what American families should be. And let's be very clear, J.D. Vance's American family vision is white, straight, 2 kids, Christian, at church 2 days a week, and paying your taxes on time. Uh, see, yeah, I mean, I'm not childless. I have 3 kids, but I'm also a trans woman, so they hate me too. So you're not alone, I promise you. Um, and paying taxes, but not supporting families. It's about controlling reproductive choices through economic coercion, and the challenge on reproductive care is because, um, yeah, right, and because that's all Project 2025. Which, by the way, I want to share this with everybody who doesn't know this. Um, there is a thing called. I'm gonna post this in the chat. The guy that runs it is a member of our group of people, but um, uh, read that shit. Um, that's basically tracking all of the executive orders that match up to and align with Project 2025 in an attempt to follow how Project 2025 has aligned with what's going on in the government right now. And the scary part about it is, if you look at that link, you will note that the executive orders that have been committed are over 50% of what Project 2025 was aiming towards, which means that was ultimately their goal all along. So I often ponder with Vance, though. Let me go back to Vance. I ponder with Vance how he works out his Christo-fascism, um, because his wife, Usha Vance, is a Telugu Indian. She's not white. She's definitely not Christian. Hindu at best. Um, how the fuck did he end up with her if he's a racist Christo-fascist white boy? I don't fucking get it, but he is. Um, so now let's talk about the fun part. Who's ready for the fun part? We all ready for the fun part? Hearts if you're ready for the fun part. Okay, good enough. Um, JD Vance fucks couches. So do we really need to say more? And by the way, if you looked at the article, um, I literally went out and found the picture of the most abused, probably fucked on a whole lot and stained the couch that I could find. And so I published the picture in in the chat. By the way, I found the picture on eBay. Found the picture on eBay, and the couch on eBay that was selling this just horribly disgusting couch. It was like $10, and you come get it. You come get it. So here's the funny part. So I posted the picture in the article. I had like 20 DMs today from people. Yes, yes, I completely did. I had got like 20 DMs from people that were like, Wendy, please, please take the picture of the couch off. It's disgusting. And it's turning my stomach over. And I'm like, but you know, JD Vance would be loving on that couch. um, and where all that came from, Waltz was quoted as saying, "I can't say for sure, but he, talking about J.D. Vance, might be the first VP pick to have admitted in a New York Times bestseller to fucking an inside-out latex glove shoved in between couch cushions." So I just have to say, no one's gonna like me for this. You're all gonna hate me. um, you're all gonna hate me for this, but there's a condition for this. So in the psychological world, we have things called philias. Necrophilia is one of them. That's like the weird one. But there's a philia called plushophilia, and plushophiliacs are sexually attracted to plushies, and many plushophiles modify their plushies with a hole for which they can then gratify themselves with. That's probably what JD Vance does with a couch, which is completely and totally disgusting. Utterly and completely and totally disgusting. Um, so here's the other really fucked up thing about Vance. He's a sunscreen denier. In the pantheon of weird political hills to die on, rejecting sunscreen despite unanimous dermatological evidence that says if you put sunscreen on, it protects you from getting skin cancer. Everybody knows this. Um, you know, that the belief in not using sunscreen. I mean, everybody's heard the Baz Luhrmann song from the late 90s, early 2000s, Sunscreen, which was a Baz Luhrmann college inspiration address set to some cool music or whatever. Everybody's heard that, right? Okay. Um, so not wearing sunscreen, that falls somewhere between flat Earth and vaccines contain microchips, but it's fucked up crazy. I don't care what anyone says. So even more disturbing in his past employment was that he was previously employed by a biotech company, founded by, of all people, Peter Thiel, who, by the way, Peter Thiel, that's an article that's coming up in like a week or two. That guy is a huge piece of shit, and he is arguably one of the weirdest, strangest, far out there. He's even more far out there than Musk. In his little underground compounds down in New Zealand, where he's waiting for the apocalypse to happen so that he can do what the fuck he wants. He's not a good person. So the cognitive dissonance required to position yourself as a champion of traditional values. Um, yeah, that earlier in the chat, I think I said that. And if you read the Hillbilly Elegy, There are numerous allusions to the fact that Vance thought that he was gay. He probably still is gay, and he's just in denial, but, what the fuck does that even mean? So he champions all these traditional values while participating in what amounts to modern day blood harvesting, which is absolutely staggering. That's the thing that Thiel does. The rumor is that Thiel takes the blood of children and cycles it into his bloodstream because he thinks it will eventually make him immortal or some weird shit like that. Like I said, Thiel is a fucked up person. There's a whole slew of shit about Thiel that's really, really bad. And you just, I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to tell me, okay, Wendy, I don't want to know any more about that person. And I will say, okay, good, I won't write about that person anymore. Here's the other thing about Vance. Vance feels incredibly guilty about shit, and often. So much, in fact, actually, that at one point he admitted to buying a phone without a SIM card in it just so he could register a fake Twitter account so that he could read what people were saying about him, because they had blocked him or whatever, and he gave a shit about it. Most functioning adults don't feel the need to create elaborate social media sock puppets to start political conversations on, or if they do, they're a bunch of fucking idiots. The fact that he publicly admitted to this behavior speaks volumes about his judgment. He has none. And if he's so deep in his own echo chamber that he genuinely cannot distinguish between behavior that makes him look savvy versus behavior that makes him look like a fucking dumbass, which is what he is, then that's a problem. That's a very clear problem. So the other thing that makes Vance really, really difficult is the suggestion that he believes that people who are in unhappy marriages should stay that way, and they should stay together for the kids. And there's nothing like telling women that they should stay in trapped, miserable marriage for the reason being stay together for the kids. This retrograde bullshit not only demonstrates Vance's profound disconnection and lack of understanding of the realities facing American families, but it also reveals a very strange underpinning of his whole family values rhetoric. The suggestion that children benefit from growing up in homes filled with tension, resentment, constant fighting, yelling and screaming and fighting is bullshit. Homes where violence and aggression constantly happen affect those kids. And here's the thing: Vance comes from that family. Vance grew up in that setting. And yet, here in his adult life, he is pushing people to do the very same thing, stay in those relationships for the sake of their children. Um, and that dysfunctionality is complete and total bullshit. By the way, I'm going to pick on somebody. Who am I going to pick on today? I've already picked on Anne before, by the way. So um, uh, I may pick on Sue, Trueblood, or Deb. So if either of you pipe up and say no in the next 3 minutes, then I won't do it. But otherwise, you're going to get picked on next. So Vance's whole narrative about staying together for the kids. I mean, his own memoir details about the profound damage that he experienced growing up, and yet he is pushing American families into that same situation. It's fucking bullshit. Um, it's categorical, total fucking bullshit. And it's not just hypocrisy, it's a fundamental betrayal of the very experiences that he grew up with. Um, and he's building that as his public platform. It's like watching a survivor of food poisoning open a restaurant with deliberately lax, lax hygiene methods where everybody eats there and gets sick anyway. So I won't go into his connection with Peter Thiel, because whenever I talk about Peter Thiel, it really riles me up, and I get very, very. People who are new to the publication will know this when I say it. I very commonly quote the banner line from the Avengers movie. That's my secret cap. I'm always angry. If I get mad enough, I just stay in a constant state of anger, and it never goes away. Um, so here's the other thing about Vance. So he describes himself as a cultural trauma victim, and excuse me, because he grew up in Appalachia, and he reveals to everybody this deeply exploitative nature of his political persona, having built his reputation on chronicling the very struggles of growing up in a broken fucking home. He now commodifies that experience into a simplistic political narrative, which is bullshit. Um, the performative victimhood that he engages in is particularly galling when contrasted with his Harvard law education. You can't play the grew up in this backwoods, but I'm a Harvard law graduate. Um, rationale. It's not that people can't rise from difficult circumstances; they do. That's commendable, but rather that Vance leverages his background as a shield from criticism while advocating policies that would actively harm communities that he's trying to represent. That's why it's bullshit. So the transformation of personal struggle into political currency, that's not just disingenuous. It's not just fucking disingenuous. It's a profound betrayal of the very communities whose story provide the foundation of his public platform, and he uses that to his own benefit. Um, Vance and the whole woke thing. Um, what's even more upsetting is Vance's suggestion that America needs to be unwoked, which is very similar to um, other things like denazification. The casual comparison of progressive social values to Nazi ideology isn't just historically illiterate, it's dangerous rhetoric. It's horribly dangerous rhetoric. His stated desire to seize assets of nonprofit organizations that he disagrees with politically isn't just unconstitutional, that's outright theft. I mean, it's textbook of how democratic norms erode under the pressure of political extremism, and that extremism causes crimes to happen, which is how we ended up with Nazi Germany. This isn't just conservative policy. Um, it's an authoritarian fantasy dressed up in the language of cultural grievance, which is just fucking bullshit, all of it. The fact that these statements don't immediately disqualify someone from serious political consideration speaks volumes about the perilous state of where our democracy is. If um, if Vance can say these things and intelligibly say, okay, um, it's this way, and these things need to happen, and those things are criminal, we have a problem. We have a much larger problem. Um, so Vance's other issue um, is his advocacy for creating government positions specifically tasked with increasing the American birth rate. Now, here's why Christians, and if anybody is Christian that is on the live, I apologize. I am not pointing this at you, but far right wing Christians specifically. So if you look at fundamental Mormonism, fundamental evangelicals, Pentecostals, um, you know, hard right Baptists, those families are large, and those families are large because um, those faith organizations encourage large families because what's the best way to make more Christians? Breed them. If we breed more Christians, then we have more Christians and we have the majority. And they believe that. That's one of the reasons why the Catholic Church doesn't condone contraception of any kind. And I mean, let's be fair, Bobby Kennedy had 14 kids. He was Catholic. What does that tell you? So rather than addressing the economic insecurity and lack of affordable health care, absence of paid family leave, and all the crushing child care bullshit that happens, um, Vance proposes creating a government bureaucracy dedicated to boosting reproduction, because literally they just care about the reproduction. That reproduction creates voters. Those voters can be steered towards the voting aisle and vote the right way. Um, and it's as if he skimmed over basically Orwell's 1984 um, and the Cliff Notes version of the population bomb, and somehow concluded, "Hey, this is a great idea. Big Brother 1984, we need to do this." Orwell is turning over in his fucking grave. Yes, exactly, and white children. Which is funny, by the way, Anne, because he doesn't have white children himself. His children are mixed race children from his wife Usha, who is an Indian woman, um, Far East Indian woman. Not anyway. You know what I mean. So the profound disconnect between his stated concern for American families and his proposed weird, fucked up Nazi solutions um, reveal an empty performative nature of his political platform. So, real support for families would look like affordable health care, proper education, all of the things that you see liberal and Democrat left leaning people push for. Republicans don't want that. They just don't want. They'd rather create some creepy government department dedicated to scrutinizing women's reproductive choices and then punishing them for not following them appropriately, which is fucking bullshit in my opinion. So Vance has reportedly and supposedly reportedly keeps a collection of Appalachian folk remedies as a connection to his cultural heritage. Now, I read this, and I'm a druid, and I have been a druid long enough to know about the power of natural remedy. And so when I read this, it really, really, really got me very angry because um, when I read some of the stuff that he'd written about his folk remedy, his little folk remedy book, it was all bullshit. Um, you know, he it might seem innocuous to you compared to his more troubling political positions, but it perfectly encapsulates the performative nature of his public persona. Um, this carefully curated, he has a carefully curated display of cultural authenticity that feeds into his hillbilly credentials. And that's the thing I talked about earlier, where he's using his upbringing to shield him from criticism from other people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with honoring cultural traditions. As a druid, I've been doing that for many years. But in the context of Vance's broader political performance, even this seemingly personal choice takes on a calculated quality, and it's used to shield him from criticism. So, what does this all mean? Um, Vance is truly a dangerous person. If Trump were unalived tomorrow because somebody made choices, we would be in big fucking trouble. Um, the transformation from insightful when he was younger to his political character now would be merely sad if the stakes weren't so high. He could actually lead the country. Instead, it's deeply alarming to watch someone with evident intelligence and education willingly embrace extreme positions that only idiots think about and only idiots talk about, on top of the fact that he fucks couches and IKEA has banned him from walking into the store ever again. Um, so Vance isn't just a political opportunist. He's a case study for how quickly democratic norms can erode when ambition eclipses principle. He's so power mad and he's so power hungry. He literally does not care about anything other than benefiting himself, which is why he's standing with fucking Trump. In a healthier political climate, someone advancing the collection of positions outlined like we have in this article would be regulated to the fringes of political discourse. Um, the fact that these views instead propelled Vance into a national prominence speaks volumes about where the American democracy is and how the fuck we got here. The most damning assessment of Vance isn't that he's wrong or misguided. He is both. It's that he knows better and he simply doesn't care, and he continues to do the things that are wrong. That level of calculated cynicism represents a far greater threat to democracy than mere ideological disagreement could ever have an effect on other people. And so, this is our vice president, and he's a dumbass. He's a huge dumbass. So, it's like, I don't know, where the fuck do we go from here? Yes, Barbara, I agree. A smart sociopath. Well, truly Machiavellian. There's the McDonald triad, and that's wets the bed, tortures animals, and is a pyromaniac. And then there's the dark triad, which is the McDonald triad, and apathy, and a Machiavellian personality. Those two triads together, I believe, qualify you as if not a complete sociopath, a near psychopath. If somebody's an LCSW, please feel free to correct me. But the two triads together put you into a very dangerous position diagnostically. And it's not a position that you would want a person. It's not a condition you would want a person who is the president of the United States to be. Clearly not. Yeah, Barbara, I agree. He's not as stupid and as brainless. And as I think TIA and borderline stroke prone as apparently Trump is, I saw a video of Trump today, and he's dragging his right foot, and that's not a good sign. It really isn't. And on top of the fact that I think that a larger portion of his behavior points to Trump suffering from sundowner syndrome. And if no one knows what this is, it happens in mid-stage dementia. They said that Biden was experiencing sundowners because he would get confused. Oh, well, Trump's doing the same fucking thing, only as worse. And so that's not good. So let's see, who are we going to pick on today? There were two people I was thinking about, and nobody chimed up. So we're just gonna see. All right, so we're gonna. We're gonna try Deb first. And if we can't get Deb, then we're gonna try Sue. Because I want to give readers the opportunity to communicate. Sue Trueblood, I definitely would love to talk with you. So Deb says no. Here we go. So now we're gonna go with Sue Trueblood and see if we can get Sue Trueblood to join the call. Barbara, have we ever brought you into a live session? I can't remember. I know we've had a conversation with Claudia and Anne and a few other people. But I can't remember if I've tried to coax you into a chat or not. Because you may be next on my list. Oh, perfect. Well, now I'm going to pick on you. Uh, you're engaging, so. Oh. Well, you should see a little pop-up come up on your device momentarily that will say, "Hey, if you see a pop-up happen, just say yes." Okay, so Sue, we'll try you again. There we go. So, Barbara, you'll see how this works if I can get Sue to join and have a chat. Oh, there she is. Okay, great.
Am I here? There?
Yes, yes, you're here. Okay, so
All
Sue,
right.
this is the first time you've ever been in the live. I'm Wendy the Druid. You can literally ask any question you want, and I will literally answer it.
I'm just so disillusioned. I mean, I have literally lost friend. Well, I won't say lost friends. I have distanced myself from people that I thought were friends
Right,
because I'm in a 12-step program, and there are
right.
certain principles that we're supposed to base decisions on and live by. And I don't understand how people can purportedly be trying to use those principles to guide them and be a MAGA. It's just impossible to do both things at once.
Yeah, if you're following a structured program like a 12 step, I don't know how you can follow those directives and at the same time recognize the dissonance that is occurring and agree with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, first of all, it calls for integrity. That's a foreign concept to this administration. So,
Um, yes, it is completely foreign. Um, earlier today, I was reading. I have an article coming out about it probably tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, the day after. Um, their dissonance is so great that Musk accused Carlos Slim, who is the richest Mexican. He's a multi-billionaire Mexican, and he owns Americana Movil, which is the largest telecommunications company in Mexico. And he had a he was developing a contract with Starlink, and Musk accused Slim of having ties to drug cartels. And so Carlos Slim said and ripped up his Starlink contract. So Musk is about to lose $22 billion. And then on top of that, the other countries around the world are looking at that and saying, oh, we need to renegotiate or we need to do the same thing. And so Musk stands to lose. So if you're that stupid, if you're that fucking dumb, how can the people who follow you see that and go, oh, I need to keep listening to what he's saying?
yeah.
Um, Alina Habba, it came out today that Alina Habba, who was Trump's attorney for the 34 felonies case, she's a Trump advisor. She's come out and said that if Doge has fired any veterans from positions in the federal government, that they probably didn't need to have that job now or ever.
Oh,
And so
incredible.
yeah, they've just disparaged the entire Veterans Administration and the armed forces.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
feel like if you're, I don't feel like if you're having a coup, you want to piss off the military.
Yeah. It's 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 just like so dystopian. I mean, it just I actually have said I'm glad I'm as old as I am. I'm almost 80, so I'm not going to have, and I don't have kids or grandkids. I am a childless cat lady. So,
Well, you're a lovely childless cat lady. I'm partnered, and we have 3 kids. Um, one of them is my bio child, and then the other 2 are her bio kids. Um, so I'm not a childless cat lady per se, mind you, but I, yeah, they hate me too.
well,
They
they,
hate
they
me.
hate anybody that isn't a MAGA. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they, they. It's just I don't. I just can't.
yeah.
I
Well, I
just can't.
appreciate you letting me have a word here.
No, no, no. I will, as I tell everybody, when I do a live, I always try to bring readers in because, for one, I don't get a lot of engagement from our readership. So if you read our publication, um, tell me what you like or what you don't like because I like to. I mean, there's people who pay me money to maintain that publication, and so if there is something that you want, just tell me and I'll do it.
Okay.
People have been begging me, for instance, for a, a binded and booked copy of all the herbal compendium shit that I published. I'm a druid and I am a very experienced herbalist and I know what I'm talking about. And I have said, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm going to put that into paper and binding here in the next like 3 or 4 months. And then, if you're a paid sub, I'll let you have like 30 or 40% off or whatever. I may even just give copies away because that opinion, that kind of benefit is something I feel everyone should have. Whether I'm trying to functionally retire on the effort or not is entirely another story.
Yeah.
So yes, so Sue, thank you very much. I will let you go now, and then we will go into the next phase of the live. But please keep
Okay.
watching.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hmm. Wow, another very wonderful and pleasant reader. Sue, I am going to tell you that all of my live sessions get posted onto the publication, so people are going to see you later. So you have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with that. Um, you have to be okay with that. So now, um, do we want to talk about voices, or do we want to have an open forum? Because I've got about 15 more minutes, maybe 20 more minutes left of the live uh, before we have to tarry off. So we can talk about voices and the problem that the mass media has with certain voices, or we can just have an open forum and people can ask questions and I will answer them. So hands on your buzzers. Spin the big wheel. No, no, no whammies. God, I'm old. Um, okay, well, we'll talk about voices then, and people can ask questions. Um, so there is a larger conversation around um, the nature of trans voices and queer voices. Um, um, and oh yeah, and right, Barbara. So the voices we're talking about media's the mass media's inability to embrace queer, trans, and everything other than straight white people in the media. And so when the White House decides to talk about trans and queer issues, you'd think journalists would, I don't know, actually talk to queer and trans persons. Um, I mean, here I am. I'm here. I have almost 3,000 subs. I would think that if a person wanted to have an opinion about being a transgender person or being a queer person, that they would actually want to involve people who are trans or queer in those conversations. I do it. Aaron Reed does it. Evan Urquhart, who is the owner of Assigned Media, he does it. Um, but do they get talked to? I doubt it. So recently, the GLAD organization, released a pretty stunning report. And so what GLAD did was they analyzed 35 first day stories from 6 major media outlets, um, and uh, basically took a bunch of statistical data. So only 13 in 35 of the stories bothered to include a single quote from a trans or queer person. Think about that. In stories about trans or queer people, 63% had 0 trans voices even mentioned in them. And it gets worse. Of the 22 stories that excluded trans and queer voices, 17 didn't even include quotes from any queer person. So not just any trans person, but any queer person on top of that. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, intersex, asexual, non-binary, the entire legitimate qua, LGBTQIA plus. I just say a little bit of legitimate qua because I like to use onomatopoeia to describe things. Um, so who are the people in the mass media actually talking to? If they're not talking to queer persons or trans persons about these issues, then where the fuck are they getting the information from? Meanwhile, the same outlets have no problems quoting anonymous White House officials who discuss policies that restrict trans and queer rights. Um, 4 stories in the 35 featured nameless bureaucrats, while only 1 story across all 35 bothered to even quote a White House staff member by name, which was bullshit. So, who gets to be an expert? So, 7 of the 35 stories that were polled included quotes from professionals with relevant experience in the topics being discussed. Okay, so if you're talking to therapy minded and therapy induced and providing individuals, right, 7 and 35, so that's 7 out of 35 stories where you were involving people that have some knowledge of how queer and trans lives exist and survive. That's just not, that just isn't bad journalism, it's dangerous. When media outlets frame discussions about trans and queer persons without including those voices or relevant experts, they're essentially letting anti-trans and anti-queer sentiment take over, and that's what foments this whole thing that everyone's afraid of. Um, you know, so 6 of the 13 stories that were mentioned did include a trans person or a queer person, also provided facts to in context to counter White House rhetoric. Okay. So basically, that means that trans and queer representation in the mass media doesn't exist. And they could talk about it all they want, but there's people like me and Aaron Reed and all the other trans and queer um, individuals that are out there, and we're the ones that are trying to represent that spectra of the space. So here's where it gets interesting and proves what many others have been saying for years. Media outlets without queer, trans reporters and journalists who have relationships with those advocacy groups don't serve those advocacy groups correctly or are not in a way that is good for them. So first day stories have a far greater reach than follow up coverage. When I publish a story day one, um, and you guys all get a hold of it, my readership and my engagement goes from hundreds of views into the thousands. Versus if I do a follow up article later, it's not as engaged. You know, so what needs to change? So media outlets need to get their shit together, and how the fuck do they do that? Actively seek out trans and queer voices, provide proper context and fact checking for claims made by government officials. I mean, fact checking, that's a thing, right? I know Facebook made all their fact checkers go away. There's probably a reason for that. Um, Hiring supportive journalists, developing relationships with advocacy organizations, PFLAG and GLAD and the Advocate and those types of things, and then creating dedicated beats for diversity coverage. And stop hiding behind anonymous sources. So when I write an article for Thistle and Moss, Wendy the Druid, um, I list my citations, and I try to list my citations carefully, um, mainly because I want you to be able to read where it was I derived the information that I give you from. I tend to not use right-leaning sources for that information. I try to stay like dead middle of the road. So people ask me which sources do I go to first. The Associated Press, NPR, Reuters, and the BBC, usually. Those are somewhat reliable, not necessarily biased sources for news. Although, I mean, I was an NPR listener and still am an NPR listener, and people who don't like NPR tell me I'm listening to National Communist Radio or whatever. I look at those people and I'm like, look, fuck you, leave me alone. Um, so, uh, what can we do as readers? So, as readers and media consumers, you can demand better. You can call out news outlets when they publish stories about trans and queer people without including those voices. You can support news organizations that prioritize inclusive coverage. You can share articles um, that center on those perspectives. Um, if you're like me and you're a journalist and you're listening, we can just do better. It's not about special treatment. It's about journalistic standards and representing the point that you are trying to get across to other people and in a way that is authentic to what you're trying to report on. I report on trans issues because I'm a trans woman and I have my own experiences. And while those experiences are difficult and hard, that doesn't mean that I'm devoid of understanding that experience and I'm talking about it. Excuse me. So we have about 10 minutes left. I was going to pick on somebody again, but if there are any questions, please feel free to. Oh, and I forgot to link the Voice and Media's article in the chat. Let me do that. So that's this article right here. So everybody has that. There we go. Um, just so everybody has the referencing article. So does anybody have any questions, or am I randomly going to pick on somebody and make them ask a weird question? I know who I want to pick on next, but we're going to see if they bite. No, it's not you, Vanessa. Don't worry. Let's see. This probably won't work. If it doesn't, I'll go down the list to the next person. One of the things that annoys me about Substack is I can't see the number of actual live users in the chat. Um, that are in the live at the time. Maybe they'll fix that. I've requested that. Um, so Druid voices in the media, Barbara. There are no Druid voices in the media. Druidism as a whole, um, from my perspective, um, is a I hate to use this term, but we're a non-conquering religion. We don't have this dogma that says we have to go out and convert everybody to being a druid. Um, Being a druid and following the path to the mother is a personal choice. And it's a personal choice that you come to of your own volition, not because somebody encouraged you to do so. So when people ask me about converting to druidism, um, I tell them, I'm like, that's a personal choice that you have to work out. Um, I can give you an education on how to do it. I can tell you how to follow that path, but that's a choice you have to make on your own, and you can't take an influence from me because um, the mother, the spirit of the earth, the great mother, inspires us to heal people and provide guidance, but nothing else. Um, so healing and guidance. So when people come and ask me questions or whatever, I say, oh, okay, well, we can have that talk, but remember, that's something that you have to decide on your own. Um, I can just give you the information. What you do with it is your choice. Um, so yeah, there's not as a whole, and for the most part, most of the druids that I know are very sort of keep to themselves type people. Um, there's not a whole lot. All right, now and I'm gonna pick on you again, Barb. Um, there's not a lot of, I don't know. We're not very loud, boisterous people. Um, does that answer your question? Of course, of course. So we're towards the end. I could pick on Mary Pitch, but I don't know that I'm going to do that. Yeah, we'll try Mary one time, and then I will give my parting words. If not, then we'll go for the night. I don't really want to hold anybody up, and I have yet to eat dinner yet, so that's coming next. Okay, Marilyn, you came at the end, so I will leave you all with my parting words. Um, I would tell all of you to stay strong and unified. Um, we're going through a very difficult time, um, and getting through that difficult time um, is the only way that we can do it is if we're all embracing each other and encouraging each other in a positive direction. I'm here for all of you. Um, just communicate with me, um, and we can accomplish whatever it is uh, that you want to accomplish. That we as a group of people want to accomplish, and we can survive this horrible thing that we're stuck in. With that, I will tell you thank you to all of my paid subscribers. You're bringing me closer to retirement, um, and as a paid subscriber, you guarantee um, a greater likelihood that I every day will do this and get on, and we can talk, and we can talk through these issues together. We can work through these issues together. I'm very thankful for that. If you're a free subscriber, thank you for that also, um, because that means that you're reading the material, and then share the material with others, get the word out. That's important too. Please always remember that. Um, and then with that, I will tell you that I love you all, and please stay safe out there.